yes, they rob and sold out to the merchant shelves. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Ops Sgt-Maj with Veterans for Freedom, Jeff Evely, back with you now on this 27th day of September 2023. We got a lot going on out there today. Things are blowing up around the Nazigate scandal and some other related threads I think we're going to chase down here. It's all very entertaining, quite frankly, and you know, we'll see what happens. It's kind of the usual scapegoat operation that's going on out there for the Nazigate scandal, but we'll watch and wait. So hopefully. All right. So let's go ahead and say our good mornings before I dive into her here. Evelyn is here. First one on the board saying good morning, all. Good morning to you, Evelyn. The Real Frozen Canadian says the drama teacher needs a ride to the train station ASAP. Yeah, sounds about right. I'm not holding my breath to see him go anywhere. Daryl, our most based of all V4F members, is here saying, hey, everyone. Good morning, Daryl. Jan is saying good morning from rainy Southwest Florida. Wow. Thanks, Jan, for being with us down in Southwest Florida. I lived in Northwest Florida for a while in the Panhandle there while I was still serving. I did 4 years at Tyndall Air Force Base, serving the NORAD mission at the 601st Air and Space Operations Center, which is actually the place where the call from the FAA went in on 9/11. A little bit of history for you guys there. Yeah, quite the experience. I love Florida. I really do. And Floridians are great, great people. Cindy is here saying, good morning, Evelyn. Good morning to you, Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers. Thanks for always being with us. Erica says, good morning. Terry is saying, good morning, all. Darlene says, good morning, everyone tuning in from New Brunswick. Darlene is always with us. Thanks very much for the support. Good morning, everyone, says Shannon. And Debbie says, good morning. Evelyn saying good morning back to Cindy. And let's see, Metzl-Slaff is with us as always from Toronto. Thanks, brother. Good morning, everyone. Great voice, Jeff Evely, says Marion. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys enjoy the singing. And Darlene is here and is saying, good morning, my brother. Good morning to you, sister. And thank you for making the graphic for me for this Friday's Freedom Friday social that I'll be doing at the food court, my local mall here. Just hopefully getting some similarly minded people together to have a conversation and socialize. Ash is saying, good morning, you filthy animals, giving us a smiley face. I mean that in a good way. Yeah, I know you do. And James is here on YouTube saying, it's for weeks like the last one that our social media is censored. A good morning, all. Yeah, I've been noticing some censorship on social media. I was just looking at my Facebook profile this morning, and I have some interactions where people have actually hit a few of the different emojis on a post that I made, and the post is not visible. So I'm like, what was that post? I don't even remember, but apparently censorship is in full swing. It really seems to have been ramping up in the last just few days, couple of weeks maybe. Lena is saying, good morning, ride safe and hold the line. Will do. There's Cindy, our most faithful all watching, saying, good morning, Jeff. Morning, friends. And also share it out, folks. Yes, please. As I'm always saying, I am the worst guy for not sharing my own stuff. So please, guys, give me a hand with that and put this out all over your socials. I'd appreciate it. And Tanya is saying, agreed. Did not realize that scapegoating was such a fast sport. Yeah, that I think is what's happening there. So the big news, I think, today is that Rota stepped down. We're going to talk about that throughout the course of the live stream, and we have a few other things to tie in with that. There's Daisy coming in a little bit late. He says, I'll do 5 push-ups. Give me 10, Daisy. Come on. You can do 10. All right. With that, I think I'll go ahead and dive right into it. Here is our philosophy meme for the day. This is Aldous Huxley, and he is a lost Jenner. That is the nomad generational archetype, same generational archetype as Gen X. And they were named the lost generation. Shoot, I can't remember who first coined the term, but it was Ernest Hemingway who made it famous. The lost generation refers to the kind of disillusionment that this particular generation, born just prior to the turn of the century, felt in the lead up to World War II, especially in light of how World War I was handled. These are the war veteran generations who came up behind the missionary generation, which was the prophet generational archetype, which is the same generational archetype as the boomer generation, currently at peak institutional power, running our institutions. And we see a lot of the same trends recur. This is kind of the whole cycle of history, is it's always a prophet generational archetype or a boomer generation that's born in the wake of the previous major crisis that threatened our civilization, that ends up tyrannizing us when they reach peak institutional power in their early elderhood just prior to retirement. And Aldous Huxley, the lost generation in general became really well known for their literary works in the 1920s in particular. They were also the rum runners who defied prohibition, veterans of the First World War who led on the battlefields of the Second World War and eventually led the Allies to victory once they finally displaced their inept missionary elders from peak institutional power. So that would have been like George Patton, for example. All right, so here is Aldous Huxley, and he says there will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak. Producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. I think that Aldous Huxley had a lot of great insight there. And this ties in well with what we're going to be talking about today, because there is this credible rumor that Trudeau's plane was grounded in India because the drug dog sniffed out some cocaine on his plane. And I say it's credible because it's a former Indian diplomat that's coming forward with this. So some of the news media is starting to pick it up. I actually reported on it here yesterday, and it's something we're tracking. It's one of these things, like, we're probably never going to get real confirmation as to the validity of the claim, but it's something worth tracking. I think for right now, we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll see where this goes, which is probably nowhere, but just something to be aware of. So. Okay, so and what we see, the reason why I find this to be relevant in particular, because the Third Reich was known for being absolutely drug-addled. So that's something that seems to recur in fourth turnings, is when that profit generational archetype, in this case the boomer generation, reaches peak institutional power. We see a lot of the elites engaging in this kind of pharmacological numbing or just debauchery in general. And it is that generation during the 70s where we saw, like, the drug of choice was LSD. There was a lot of, debauchery, AIDS epidemic, this kind of thing. Statistically, according to the Harvard Statistical Database, boomer female had double the number of sexual partners. Maybe it was triple, as any other generation on record. Yeah, it was triple. It was triple the number of sexual partners and double the number of abortions. So yeah, that's the generation. As I'm always pointing out, people don't really change throughout the course of their lives. They may grow, but they don't fundamentally change. And so these are the kinds of trends that we've seen kind of make their way up as the boomers advance in their careers with age. So here is the meme for the day. Here is Trudeau, and he's got his, I don't know if that's a straw or a dollar bill. Looks like a dollar bill rolled up. And he's scraping some cocaine lines together, and it says, "I stand with Ucaine." Yeah, that's pretty much the size of it here. And here's something that I was retweeting. Ben Banks apparently put this together. This is a good little video of Trudeau and Zelensky. They did a selfie video there in the House of Commons just yesterday. I think this is from. And I'm retweeting this, and I'm saying, first, Trudeau gets busted for booger sugar in India. Now he's rubbing off on Zelensky. Their eyes look like four piss holes in a snowbank. So here, these guys, look at these guys. I'm telling you, like, I'm serious. Like, look at these eyes, both of them. I could see, like, okay, maybe one of them could say, "Oh, I was tired," and stuff like that. But the two of them, their eyes look like piss holes in a snowbank. It's unbelievable. All right, here we go.
This is my best friend, Volodymyr Zelensky, and I am here as the Prime Minister of Canada, one of the weakest militaries in the world. We are standing up to this giant superpower that is Russia. So the way we are doing this is by doing lots of cocaine and having sex parties, because, as you know, I'm single now, so I've been trying to finger bang Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift. What do you think about this, Mr.
Hello, yes, I am very high on cocaine, and I like to spend the money on missile and maybe drone. I like to have drone, and maybe I send drone, and maybe we blow up something in Russia and cause nuclear war. And this is kind of what we're trying to do here. And as you know, some of the people in Ukraine who are currently fighting against Russia are Nazis. And they used to, their grandfather, we thank you. There was an old man today that we thanked for being a Nazi and fighting the Russians. And we're really happy for that.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. Sexy son of a. Let's go do a couple lines. Do you want to get some pre-rolls?
Okay, so that's gold. Yeah, and Steve is saying laughter is the best medicine. I'm always saying that humor is a coping strategy. It's a coping strategy that humans adopt, I think. And I talk about there's the only thing blacker than Justin Trudeau's heart is a soldier's humor. You want to hear the things that soldiers say when they're in theater. They will make light of anything. Like you kind of have to just to maintain your sanity. Darlene is saying, love that remark, Jeff. It's been years since I heard that. I think she means the booger sugar. Yeah. I just can't help myself, guys. We got to have some fun in all of this, right? Okay. So, and this is what I'm talking about here. I haven't read this book, but I just went looking for some references online, and this is a book on Amazon. It's got 4.5 stars with just about 2,000 ratings, and it's called Blitzed: Drugs in the Third Reich. The Nazi regime preached an ideology of physical, mental, and moral purity, but as Norman Ohler reveals in this gripping new history, the Third Reich was saturated with drugs. On the eve of World War II, Germany was a pharmaceutical powerhouse, and companies such as Merck and Bayer cooked up cocaine, opiates, and most of all, methamphetamines to be consumed for everyone from factory workers to housewives to millions of German soldiers. In fact, troops regularly took rations of a form of crystal meth. The elevated energy and feelings of invincibility associated with the high even helped to explain certain German military victories. Drugs seeped all the way up to the Nazi high command and especially to Hitler himself. Over the course of the war, Hitler became increasingly dependent on injections of a cocktail of drugs, including a form of heroin administered by his personal doctor. While drugs alone cannot explain the Nazis' toxic racial theories or events of World War II, Ohler's investigation makes an overwhelming case that if drugs are not taken into account, our understanding of the Third Reich is fundamentally incomplete. Carefully researched and rivetingly readable, Blitzed throws surprising light on a history that until now has remained in the shadows. Yeah. And that is, I'm associating this with the fourth turning and with Strauss-Howe generational theory. As you can see, look at this. It looks like we got the fourth turning is showing up in the book recommendations as well. I mean, I already got my copy, but this just came out in July. So Neil Howe actually forecasted that a major crisis would threaten our civilization in the year 2020, plus or minus 2 years. And he's just published a book that says, yeah, this is the crisis. And the subtitle here is what the seasons of history tell us about how and when the crisis will end. So I highly recommend that book. I'm maybe about 3/4 of the way through it right now. A lot of it is just kind of not revision, but a review, I think, of some of his earlier works so far. But we're starting to get into, I'm just kind of getting into some of the new commentary on this. And I have reached out to Neil Howe to see if he would do an interview, but I'm just a little podcaster over here. So Cindy is asking, why is the sore on Trudeau's forehead not healed yet? I don't know if it's ever going to heal. I think that's probably a scar from a high heel that he got from his ex now. So, but it's probably permanently there. I hope it's permanently there. That would just be hilarious. Okay. And here is Project Tabs, and she's saying, or they're saying, we've had Zelensky, Trudeau, and Maloney. Now Ardennes. I mean, we already know she smoked crack. I'm sure there are many leaders of countries and positions of power who love their cocaine, among other drugs. Now, one thing I'm going to point out here is that Jacinda Ardern is a Gen Xer, as is Trudeau, as is Zelensky. And this is really my read is that this is the formula for genocide, is when you get the Gen Xers serving the boomers, you end up with a genocide. And I think that is what is currently underway in Canada. It's a long, slow genocide, but just looking at the whatever we can glean from the all-cause mortality statistics, which of course StatsCan is playing the hide the ball with, it does seem to be the case that we have mass death in Canada at this particular moment, and across the West and across the world. So yeah, that is the difference. Is I'm not. You can't just take everybody in a generation and lump them into one. Obviously, we need to seek out the boomers who are on the right side of history, like Dr. Robert Malone or Jordan Peterson, and we also need to be very guarded against certain Gen Xers. That's what it says in The Fourth Turning, which came out in 1997, is beware the Gen Xer demagogue. When we have the Gen Xer demagogue on our hands, we have the formula. They're just showing a little video here. She's rubbing her nose. She looks a little bit pale. She's a little itchy face, huh? What's going on there? Well, I think we know. So here's Dr. Simon Godek, and he says this is secure Zelensky's cocaine supply for a year, and he's retweeting NBC News. Breaking: President Biden announces $325 million in military aid package during a White House meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. So here is Zelensky. Somebody's put together this little clip show of him. Lots of sniffing going on there. Just look at the eyes, and he's always touching his face and rubbing his nose. Is that paranoia that I see on his face? Look at the eyes. Oh my God. I don't have any inside knowledge of this. I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves here and trying to interpret what's going on. But I tell you, all the signs are there. So, DL is saying Pervetin. I think that was a drug that the Nazis used as well. I put that on my my graphic for today's episode. Okay, here's the Toronto Sun, and they're reporting former Indian diplomats claims a troubling example of disinformation. PMO. So PMO is saying that the Indians are engaged in disinformation when they're accusing him of having cocaine on him while he was at the G20, or on the plane at least. And the subheading here is G20 allegations absolutely false, Trudeau's office says. The Prime Minister's office has dismissed comments from a former Indian diplomat who says there is a quote unquote credible rumor that Justin Trudeau's plane, quote, was full of cocaine, close quote, during the recent G20 meeting in New Delhi. In a statement, the PMO denied the unsubstantiated claim. Quote, this is absolutely false and a troubling example of how disinformation can make its way into media reporting, close quote. Vora, meanwhile, criticized Trudeau for having little knowledge of international relations and said he behaves like a small child. Quote, when Justin Trudeau came to India for the G20 this month, his plane was full of cocaine, close quote, Vora said during a debate show hosted by journalist Deepak Sharazia on Z News. Quote, he did not come out of his room for 2 days. So that is something I've seen elsewhere too, is where they're reporting that he didn't come out of his hotel room for 2 days during the G20, and he missed some engagements, like there was a dinner that he missed. So yeah, there are a lot of factors kind of confluence around this that all seem to point in one direction. Vora alleged police sniffer dogs discovered cocaine on Trudeau's plane during the Intergovernmental Forum in early September. Quote, my wife saw him at the Delhi airport and said that Trudeau looked depressed and stressed, close quote. Vora continued. Quote, we don't know the reason, I don't know the reality, but social media and some credible rumors suggest that his plane was full of cocaine. He has become lonely. He is now trying to show that he is a Canadian Rambo and nothing can go wrong in his presence. India has done the right thing by suspending visa services to Canada. Yeah, it's a real mess they got made here. And India really should be the ally that we're focusing on in the region. If there's anybody in the region who can act as a counterweight to China, then it is India. And I mean, they're Western, democratic, capitalist, English-speaking, nuclear. We couldn't ask for a better ally, and here we are alienating them. Back to the article. Last week, Trudeau told the House of Commons and Canadian intelligence services are investigating, quote unquote, credible information about quote, potential link, close quote, between the government of India and the murder of British Columbia Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Nijjar was shot outside his Gurdwara in Surrey, BC, on June 18th. Quote, in his parliament address, he used the words credible allegations against India, close quote. Vora said, quote, how can allegations be credible? Either it can be credible or an allegation. I have a credible rumor to make in this case that Trudeau is crazy. It is a credible rumor, close quote. Clyde Do Something was on the program here yesterday, and he pointed out the trick of language here. It was very astute on his part, where they're saying allegations instead of accusations, because an accusation would carry more weight if it were an accusation. If it were legal, then they probably, like, if Trudeau actually had formidable evidence to support this claim that India is conducting these extrajudicial killings on Canadian soil, then it would be an accusation, not an allegation. So Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has denied Canada's allegations. Both countries have expelled senior diplomats, while India has stopped processing visas to Canadians. And that is all very fortunate for the Chinese Communist Party. According to media in India, this is not the first time Vora has made controversial statements. In an earlier TV debate, he referred to Chinese President Xi Jinping by using racist language. Indian authorities are also investigating allegations of, quote, financial irregularities, close quote, during Vora's tenure as ambassador to Sudan from 2007 to 2009. Okay, so anyway, it's out there. People are talking about this. It's in the mainstream now. So I was talking about this yesterday. It's ultimately, like, I don't think we're ever going to know the truth about this. Are they going to, conduct an investigation and release details or anything like that? Probably not. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So, and here is the Hindustan Times. It says Trudeau was high, plane was full of cocaine. Ex-diplomat makes stunning claims. And they have the video here, but it's not in English. So it says ex-diplomat Deepak Vora made some bizarre claims about Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He said that when Justin Trudeau came to India for the G20 this month, his plane was apparently full of cocaine. He further claimed that Trudeau missed the G20 dinner because he was high on drugs and did not come out of his room for 2 days, leaving him unable to attend G20 programs. Watch this video to know more. So there it is. And this is the post-millennial. Trudeau's plane may have been, quote, full of cocaine, close quote, during G20 summit, former Indian diplomat. A former Indian diplomat has claimed that there is a quote-unquote credible rumor that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's plane at a recent G20 meeting was, quote, full of cocaine. Deepak Vora, who was a former Indian ambassador to Sudan, made the claim on Monday on Indian television, also saying that the Canadian leader, quote, has definitely gone insane, close quote. Quote, when Justin Trudeau came to India for the G20 this month, his plane was full of cocaine, close quote, Vora said during the show on Z News. According to the Toronto Star, quote, he did not come out of his room for 2 days, close quote. Vora claimed that police dogs had discovered cocaine on Trudeau's plane during the G20 summit earlier this month. Quote, my wife saw him at the Delhi airport and said that Trudeau looked depressed and stressed, close quote, Vora continued. Quote, we don't know the reason, we don't know the reality, but social media and some credible rumors suggest his plane was full of cocaine, close quote. Quote, he has become lonely. He is now trying to show that he is the Canadian Rambo and nothing can go wrong in his presence. India has done the right thing to suspend visa services to Canada. In a statement to the outlet, the Prime Minister's office denied the allegation. This is absolutely false and troubling example of how disinformation can make its way into media reporting, close quote. Vora also criticized Trudeau for a recent speech he gave in the House of Commons, saying, quote, in his Parliament address, he used the words credible allegations against India, close quote, Vora said. Quote, how can these allegations be credible? Either it can be credible or an allegation. I also have a credible rumor to make. Okay, so same thing he said in the previous article. Trudeau last week told the House of Commons that Canadian intelligence services are investigating credible information regarding a potential link between the Indian government and the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a British Columbia Sikh leader who was fatally shot outside his Gurdwara on June 18th. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has denied the allegations. India has stopped processing Canadian visas, and both countries have expelled senior diplomats. Notably, Trudeau's jet was stuck in India for an extra day after quote-unquote technical difficulties grounded the flight. So that is the official narrative anyway, is the technical difficulties, but all kinds of reasons to be suspicious around that claim. This, it's just so terrible. God, they're not processing visas for us anymore. Like I say, India should be one of our strongest allies. They're a BRICS nation too. Like they're neutral, but they do have intelligence sharing agreements with the UK and the US. They're pro-Western. They're English speaking. We should be building them up instead of sending all our manufacturing to China. Like if you want to send it to Asia somewhere, send it to India. Really, I think we need to reshore a lot of our capabilities in that regard. There's strategic capabilities that are required for our security and stability, but I won't hold my breath on that one. All right. And speaking of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, here is Kirk Lubimov, and he says Khalistani Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who Justin Trudeau claims was assassinated with quote unquote or quote credible potential link, close quote, by agents with ties to India's government, is shown shooting weapons in a quote unquote training camp in British Columbia, Canada. Is that an AK-47 prohibited in Canada? Can't tell what the other gun is. India also claimed that Pakistan was planning to join forces with Nijjar to target India. Okay, so this is interesting. It's kind of the first that I'm seeing of it, but it's worth talking about. They're reporting, at least, that this is Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and let's go ahead and have a look at it.
Editor Manoj Gupta, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He is the newly appointed chief of the Khalistan Terror Force, seen brandishing an assault rifle and running a terror training camp, in fact, in Canada. Not just that, CNN News 18 has learned that the Pakistan's ISI, intelligence agency, was planning to target India by joining forces with Nijjar. Editor Manoj Gupta.
So that's that is coming from an Indian news outlet here. So yeah, definitely seems like there's more than meets the eye to this story. Okay, here is Rob Schneider, and he is of Saturday Night Live fame from back in the day when Saturday Night Live was actually worth watching. And Ash is saying it's an SKS. So, it very well could be. I wasn't even really looking that hard at it. It doesn't really seem to matter much to me what kind of a rifle it is. And Zebex Demise over on Rumble is saying, an assault rifle. Yeah. Interesting times in which we live here, folks. So Rob Schneider has kind of been all over Canada lately, which is great to see. Like the Americans, I think, are really pulling for us, for the people, not for the leadership. And they're taking a pretty special interest in Canada. Rob Schneider is kind of the latest to the table, and it says he's watching you, Canada, judging. So what is Rob Schneider saying? Well, here he is. Good news, Canada. The Nazi who fought for Hitler was honored by your Prime Minister, and your House of Parliament was twice vaccinated and double boosted. So at least some of his quote unquote views were not completely unacceptable to Justin, the terrible Trudeau. Here is he's sharing out a clip of Pierre Poilievre on the floor of the House of Commons. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, the question was for the Prime Minister, because indeed it is the Prime Minister's sole responsibility to guarantee the diplomatic success of major world leaders who come to this country. It is the Prime Minister whose government is responsible for both security and diplomatic vetting of everyone that comes in close proximity of a foreign leader on Canadian soil, particularly a foreign leader who is at war. The government has now admitted that they vetted everyone who was in attendance that day. Will the Prime Minister apologize for having vetted this individual and letting him come anyway?
Mr. Speaker, like all members of this chamber, I am incredibly disappointed in the fact that this individual was invited, as you yourself, Mr. Speaker, have confirmed by you, was recognized in the gallery. I found out, just like every other member in this House at that time, that this individual was present. This is deeply embarrassing for us as parliamentarians, as Canadians, and it is something that I think all of us take extremely seriously. And I would ask my honorable colleagues not to politicize this moment.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is responsible. He is in Ottawa today. He can get on his feet and answer for his massive diplomatic embarrassment and shame.
Stand up.
That minister.
Okay, I think we get the idea what the talking heads are saying in Parliament here. And Darlene is saying, still say Justin Trudeau is behind the whole ordeal. You know, it is a little too convenient for China that we're cutting off diplomatic ties to India. Like I say, they should be the country that we're strengthening ties with. And if anybody in the region can act as a counterweight to China, it is India. China appears to have captured our elites, you know, as we're seeing with a lot of the tap dancing around the inquiry into foreign interference. Senators coming out and holding rallies to admonish us for even suggesting we should have a foreign agent registry. That's not a Chinese registry. They're likening it to the Chinese Exclusion Act from the lead up to the Second World War. Actually, I think that was well before that. It's been 100 years. Yeah, it's been 100 years since the Chinese Exclusion Act. And so they're saying, you know, so we're being accused of racism for, and that is the Chinese Communist Party's tactic, as far as I can see. Anybody who represents even the slightest impediment to Chinese Communist Party global dominance is just called a racist. So yeah, I would tend to agree, Darlene, that it's all a little bit too convenient. I'm suspicious that perhaps, you know, this was all kind of planned ahead of time just to introduce a little bit of polarization, a little more between Canada and India, because that serves the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. So, all right, and here's Rob Schneider again. He says, okay, Canada, Speaker of the House resigns. That's a very good start. You are one of three of the way there. Now rid yourselves of PM, Justin the Terrible Trudeau, and his henchperson, her deputy PM, Chrissy Freeland. Yeah, so, and somebody's sharing this out. You can do it. This is one of Rob Schneider's movies. What movie is that from? I forget. You can do it. Anyway, hilarious guy. Got a really strong following on Twitter, and he's bringing a lot of light to Canadian politics. So it's good to see. It's good to see our American friends are pulling for us here, for the people. Okay, and here is Chris Dacey, regular contributor, and I believe in the chats right now, regular contributor to the V4F podcast, a good friend of V4F, wearing his V4F hat, and he's outside of the House of Commons here in Ottawa saying, breaking, Speaker of the House Anthony Rota has resigned. Is this where accountability will end? Probably. And I'm showing this here because I tweeted this out, like, is this a scoop? because I found out that the speaker resigned from this video. So great job, Daisy. He's the man on the ground there, doing all kinds, some of the best like muckraking reporting, grassroots stuff we see anywhere in Canada right now. So here's Daisy.
Hey, Daisy here. I'm live on Wellington Street, House of Commons behind me. I just posted a few videos where I was asking some of our members of Parliament if there would be any accountability or if they had comments about the debacle here the other night when Justin Trudeau was hosting Ukrainian President Zelensky and a Nazi member of the Waffen SS was given 2 standing ovations in the building behind me. Well, I'm just getting word now that the Speaker of the House, Rhoda, has resigned. So one person is taking some accountability. Let's see if they're just throwing him under the bus or if anyone else will take accountability for what happened here.
Not holding my breath on that one.
Daisy here.
It seems like it's going to be another scapegoat operation. This seems to be the modus operandi of the boomer generation, and I point to the example of Kyle Brown from the Somalia affair. I mean, he was the only one who went to prison. He did 5 years for a murder he didn't commit, when it was in fact, probably a couple of different people who played a role in it. One of them being Master Corporal Clayton Matchey, Boomer, and he actually hanged himself while he was in custody, and I believe still has to do an appearance in court every year to show that he's still wearing a diaper and therefore not fit to stand trial. So this was up and down the chain of command. I mean, there were orders to abuse the prisoner coming from one of the officers there on the ground. There were orders coming from the commanding officer to shoot between the skirts and the flip-flops with respect to starving Somalian peasant children who were running away with goods and supplies. And the Shadane Aron, who was murdered, tortured to death in the Somalia affair. I mean, they found him hiding in a porta-john, and it was like he wasn't even stealing anything at the time. He was in a neighboring compound that had been completely vacated, and they actually removed all desirable items that anybody might steal from the compound. And for some reason, he was in a porta-john, and he was taken prisoner, even though he wasn't even at the compound. And anyway, so there was a whole concerted effort by the chain of command, up and down the chain of command, especially when it came to the cover-up. It went all the way to the chief of defense staff's desk, and the only one who ever faced any kind of quote-unquote accountability was the lowest man on the totem pole. And that's what I saw throughout the course of my military career as well, is this scapegoating that the boomer generation appears to engage in. The latest example coming by way of disgraced chief of defense staff General Vance, who basically scapegoated 2 new generations of soldiers for all of the sexual misconduct that he himself and his peers engaged in their entire careers. So that's a trend as far as I can tell. So here's Colin Ruggs, and he says, breaking: Canadian Speaker Anthony Rota has resigned after calling a Ukrainian Nazi a hero. Total humiliation. It gets even worse. Poland is now moving to extradite 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka, the Nazi who was praised in the world stage. And he's got a quote there. I'll just go ahead and let the speaker say it for himself.
It's with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons. It has been my greatest honor as a parliamentarian to have been elected by you, my peers, to serve as the Speaker of the House of Commons for the 43rd and 44th Parliament. I have acted as your humble servant of this House, carrying out the important responsibilities of this position to the very best of my abilities. It's with a heavy heart.
And Cindy is saying scapegoat. Yeah, that is the title of the book that Kyle Brown co-authored with Peter Worthington. And thank you, Cindy, for finding a copy of that book, which is no longer in print for me. That was a wonderful gesture. She actually got her hands on a copy and sent it to me. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through that one too. I read multiple books at once. That seems to be something I've been doing for years now. Like I like to just kind of go back and forth between them. But yeah, that's where I get that from. The modus operandi of the boomer generation is scapegoating. And of course, I'm talking about the boomer generation of elites, those who are running our institutions right now, not Cindy Irwin herself. So, but yeah, this I think probably goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And I could do a really good, I think, video on that someday when I have some time. So here's Ryan O'Connor. Only one person in Canada can pull the plug on this government and allow the Liberals' toxic whirlpool of international embarrassment to go down the drain where it belongs. Instead, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh wants to wait until 2025 so he qualifies for his parliamentary pension. Yeah, I think that's basically the current state of affairs right now. I'd like to see some pressure mount on Jagmeet Singh for this. But the good news is, like, the polling data is showing that these parties are probably going to be relegated to third party status in the next election. But I mean, they're looking at the same polling data and they're staying away from the election. They're doing everything they can to stave it off because their demise is obvious at this point. So I think they're just white knuckling it into 2025. So Jagmeet can get his pension, and Trudeau won't face any consequences as long as he continues to scapegoat. And here is the Prime Minister's itinerary for Wednesday, September 27th. That's today. And it says that at 10 a.m., the Prime Minister will attend the National Caucus meeting, and at 2 p.m., the Prime Minister will attend question period. So we're expecting him to make an appearance in question period today, folks. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time. Let's tune in for that. I'm sure it will be platitudinous and annoying, as it always is. Okay, and here is Mr. Platitudes himself, Justin Trudeau. So it's less than a minute. Everybody, just kind of grit and bear it on this one. Here's your Trudeau warning. Glenda M is saying, once again, Trudeau had a chance to take responsibility, and once again, he lays the blame at the Speaker's feet. Canadians can no longer allow him to get away with this. Yeah, he's never accountable for anything. Okay, here we go.
Mr. Prime Minister, do you still have confidence in Anthony Rota as Speaker of the House of Commons?
Mr. Prime Minister? Est-ce que vous voyez un scénario où M. Rota peut rester aujourd'hui?
As I said yesterday, this was deeply embarrassing for the House and for Canada. It's a good thing that Speaker Rota apologized personally, and I'm sure he's reflecting now on how to ensure the dignity of the House going forward. Je pense que c'était profondément gênant ce qui s'est passé et pour le Canada et pour le Parlement. C'était une bonne chose que le président se soit excusé, mais je suis certain qu'il est en train de réfléchir à comment assurer.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky?
I know that House leaders are going to be meeting later this morning, and I'm sure they'll have very important
Did you receive an extradition request from Poland for Mr. Hunka?
You hear that last question? Did you receive an extradition request from Poland for Mr. Hunka? Here it is. Rupert Supermania. And she's tweeting, Poland is seeking to extradite 98-year-old Jaroslav Hunka, who fought in the Waffen-SS on behalf of the Nazis, to face trial in Poland for war crimes. Hunka was given a standing ovation in the House of Commons a few days ago as a Canadian and Ukrainian, quote, war hero for fighting against the Russians in World War II, close quote. What an S show by the Trudeau government. What a shit show. I guess I could say that, right, guys? We're all adults around here. Yeah, so here it is. I mean, it's in Polish, so I can't read it, but apparently they are seeking to extradite this guy now. So again, here our standing is definitely taking a hit on the world stage. Definitely not good for Canada. And over on Rumble, Conan is saying, I'll take the heat I might get on this. This old man was born in 1925 Ukraine. Chances are good he remembers what Stalin did to Ukraine. So when some Germans showed up and offered him a gig to kill Russians, and that's as far as the comment goes, I would say that he took it. You know, I appreciate you kind of taking that position and making the counterpoint. We like to consider all angles around here. But ultimately, like, you know, we fought a war over the Nuremberg defense, and there's a kind of there's a jurisprudence that I think needs to be followed here. And of course, this guy never should have been honored in the House of Commons. That is just beyond the pale. Unbelievable. Okay, here's Sean Rickard, and he says, some of you may need to sit down for this. Left-wing breakfast TV host Sid Seixeiro unleashes his disgust regarding the Trudeau Liberals' heinous SS Nazi standing ovation debacle in the House of Commons last week, live on breakfast television of all places. Listen to his voice breaking. These are legitimate emotions and concerns. Finally, a left-wing MSM commentator acknowledging the incompetence, hypocrisy, and insanity of the Liberal government for what it is. More importantly, Sid spoke out about it on live TV, as he and all other MSM journalists with even a shred of integrity should. A tip of the hat to Sid Seixeiro. I don't know how to say it. I don't watch, left-wing news, obviously. So there we go. I mean, I keep an eye on it just to know what the propagandists are saying, but this is positive. I agree. This is positive. Even the propaganda machine is starting to turn against Trudeau. And I've been pointing that out in a few different articles. We're seeing this trend start to mount. So here is breakfast television.
This past Friday in our House of Commons, an incident took place that a lot of the country here is talking about, so are we. The Speaker of the House apologized after the fact for honoring a Ukrainian veteran who it was later revealed fought for the Nazis in World War II. I would be seeing a lot of shades of color today. I have to be honest with you. Here's what I think should happen today. Anthony Rota as Speaker needs a step down. That's a mistake I'm not going to let go. He needs a step down. Secondly, the Prime Minister's office that had passed the buck on this in every statement I've seen. I need like a 5 to 10 minute explanation from the Prime Minister today on this. Nothing happens in a ceremony like that without the PMO knowing. Nothing. The Parti Québécois, the Conservatives, Jagmeet saying no one has control over that. No one else has control over that. That's our Prime Minister. That's the Prime Minister's office. They're running that too. So I want an explanation from them because that's ridiculous. Point 3, Google stuff. People around North America, within 3 minutes of that happening, went on Google and figured it out. I don't know what's going on in our nation's capital right now, but I've had it. And to everyone in the Liberal Party, I'm going to take a different route here. October of 2025 is scheduled to be our next election in this country, okay? I know there are people running the federal Liberals, and it's not just a cliche, in the mahogany rooms with the cigars and the brandy who actually run things in that party. To all the people in that party, you are going to become third-party status in this election if this stuff keeps going on. This is an insult to a lot of people in this country on the eve of Yom Kippur.
Yep.
This happened on the eve of one of the holiest days on the calendar for a lot of Jewish people in this country. This is unacceptable, and stuff has to happen. And I don't want to see people hiding behind statements today. This is ridiculous, okay? I come out here and I rip on conservatives a lot. I can't let this go. This was lazy. This was ridiculous, and it put a lot of people in a bad spot, including Volodymyr Zelensky. I can't believe that took place, and there needs to be repercussions for that. With that said, hopefully, Tam, hopefully, Meredith, hopefully, Devo, we see some real sincere apologies and action today. I don't need just the apologies. There needs to be action today. This is an international embarrassment for this country in a big moment, and there needs to be repercussions for that.
Yes, absolutely. So this is great to see right on breakfast television, live TV. There are a couple of points he's making there, like, oh, poor Volodymyr Zelensky. This is going to make him look bad. And I've seen some other tweets out there, different mainstream outlets talking about how or at least people on the left talking about how this is going to lend credibility to Russian propaganda with regards to their claims that they're engaged in denazification operations. Well, I mean, are they lying? I'm not so sure. We're tracking a lot of Nazi-esque activity over there in the Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it all kinds on the program here before. Chrystia Freakland's grandfather, the Azov battalion, so on and so forth. So there are a lot of concerns around that. It's never black and white, guys. Like it's always shades of gray. But why do we got to take sides in this conflict? Because the more and more the truth comes out, the more it appears that we're siding with Nazis. Okay, so here's Max Blumenthal, and he says, in my latest, I cite this 1997 60 Minutes special, quote, Canada's Dark Secret, close quote, which exposed Ottawa's post-war policy of welcoming Nazi SS veterans. A historian recalls how Pierre Trudeau told him his government hid the Nazi criminals and documents how Ukraine and Baltic immigrants received instant Canadian citizenship, quote, by showing the SS tattoo. This proved that you were an anti-communist, close quote. Okay, so I'm just going to show a couple of minutes of this. I got it teed up to a spot just at the end of the introduction. Here we go.
Only now, a full half-century after the end of World War II, are we beginning to learn the truth about some bitter realities hidden from public view back then. First, that the Swiss did very profitable business with the Germans during that brutal war, and deprive the Nazis' Holocaust victims and their families of their rightful property. Well, now comes Canada's dark secret. That Canada's government apparently welcomed thousands of Nazi war criminals into Canada at war's end, where they have lived comfortably and peacefully ever since. And only now has Canada begun to acknowledge its complicity and its shame. The traditional cold calm of Canada has been shaken by, of all things, a meddling American, an unorthodox private detective from Brooklyn named Stephen Rombaugh. For 2 years, mostly at his own expense, he has been tracking down Canada's alleged war criminals after getting their names from the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Jerusalem.
The vast majority of the people who we selected from the list of 1,000 to pursue are people who, with their own hands, killed Jews, shot them, stabbed them, beat them to death. Now, there are also a number of these war criminals who, while for the most part they may not have pulled the trigger, they coordinated the rounding up and the execution of thousands of Jews.
How do you coordinate the rounding up and murder of thousands of Jews?
If you are Antanas Kenstavicius,
yep,
you are the police chief of the Svencionis region in Lithuania. You take groups of Jews about 1 kilometer away to the Jewish graveyard where a ditch has been dug. You strip them naked. You have them hold hands in groups of 10, and you shoot them in the back with rifles.
How do you know all this?
Because he confessed. He confessed in detail on tape.
At Kenstavicius' home in Hope, British Columbia, these pictures shot by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Rambam says that he secretly recorded Kenstavicius and his wife describing how they watched the Nazis execute more than 5,000 Jewish men, women, and children.
The Jews were going to lay down. They wouldn't fight? They just laid down? No, nobody fight. No screaming. And then when they come into front and they take someone down, they fall down. Sometimes they fall, and they fall in the ditch.
And very matter-of-factly, he's detailing these murders. And at a certain point in the conversation, he looks at me and he says,
And 9 November, about 1 o'clock, it is finished. No more Jews.
No more Jews.
No more Jews. There you go. So, I am going to post a link because Colleen, is it Colleen? Darlene is requesting, where did the comment go? Okay, so somebody is requesting that I post a link to this one. Here is the tweet. I'll drop it in the comments here, guys. So if you want to watch that whole 60 minutes video, you can go and do that. And yeah, I mean, this is something I think, I was kind of peripherally aware of in the past, but it's really coming to the fore now. Oh, it was Colleen. Colleen is saying, oh, wow, Jeff, is there a link for this? Okay, so I just posted it in the comments, guys. And Louise is saying, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Louise, but you're late, so you owe me some push-ups. Drop and give me 10. Okay, moving on. Here is Andy Lee, special rebel rapporteur, and she says, Christia Freakland should answer my email. It is simply not plausible that she didn't know the dark history behind the Liberal Party's Waffen SS Nazi guest in Parliament, because her family served in the same Ukrainian Galician division. I'm probably not saying that right. Galician or Galician? Okay, and here is, she's posting a screen cap from her email to Christia Freakland, and it says, my name is Andrea Lee. I'm an independent journalist. It has come to my attention that Deputy PM Christia Freakland, according to the University of Manitoba Archives, has a familial connection to a former soldier who served in the Ukrainian Galician Division, formerly the Waffen SS of the Nazi Party. Her uncle by marriage, Miroslav Shandrij, is listed in the archives as being the son of Boris Skandrich, a soldier who served in the Ukrainian Galician Division during World War II. This is, of course, of considerable public interest, particularly given the current scandal regarding the recent honoring of a soldier from the same division in our parliament. I am given Mrs. Freakland until the end of the day to confirm or comment if she wishes. Thank you for your time. Okay, so good on Andy Lee for holding these people's feet to the fire. I'm not expecting any straight answers to be forthcoming, so we'll keep reporting on that here. And Alberta Girl 67 on Rumble is saying, morning coffee break. Yeah, push-ups. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Drop and give me 10. All right. So, but I do appreciate you guys being here, of course. And Rupert Supermania is tweeting out, notice Christia Freakland vigorously nodding her head while Karina Gould is looking to rewrite history by striking the speaker's remarks from the Hansard. We're truly living in the age of Orwell's 1984. And I think it was Tawny that was just asking in the comments if we talked about this. We did. We talked about it yesterday. They're trying to rewrite history already. Like, this is just the news. It's not even history yet. And here they are trying to abolish the record. So here we go.
I would like to ask for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, the recognition made by the Speaker of the House of an individual present in the galleries during the joint address to Parliament by His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky be struck from the appendix of the House of Commons debates of Thursday, September 21st, 2023, and from any House multimedia recording. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yes, I guess we have to go to the, we'll ask about unanimous consent and go to it. All those opposed to the Honourable Ministers moving the motion will please say nay. We don't have unanimous consent.
To explain our rationale. It goes without saying that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. What happened on Friday was shameful and brought embarrassment to this chamber. It was an ugly reminder of what survivors of the Holocaust know too well, that we must never forget. Deleting the text of the Speaker's words from Hansard's would have...
I'm going to have to interrupt. I see this. I'm afraid it's getting into debate more than anything else. I'm afraid it's debate more than anything else, and I can't point of order on something that's already been voted on. I'm just trying to make some sense out of it. Okay, I'll let the honourable member go a little bit further, but I'm trying to figure out where he's going with this. I can't say I disagree with what he's saying, but I just want to. It's not a point of order.
Deleting the text of the Speaker's words from Hansard would have only one purpose: to try and forget what happened, to wash the record clean. Removing this from...
I'm afraid this is debate.
And Darlene is saying Wicked Witch Freakland is bubble heading. Yeah, that's Oh my God, that's all she can do. The Wicked Witch of the WEF, Christia Freakland, bobbleheading along with the rewriting and expunging of history in truly Orwellian fashion. Okay, and here is Stephen L. Miller, and he says, "Isn't this interesting?" So yes, it is. Here is a screen cap from Wikipedia. This is Yaroslav Homka, the article. And the caption here reads, "This article is being considered for deletion in accordance with Wikipedia's deletion," I assume it says policy. And here we have another one. It says, "This article is being considered for deletion in accordance with Wikipedia's deletion policy. Please share your thoughts on the matter at this article's deletion discussion page. Feel free to improve the article, but do not remove this notice before the discussion is closed, and do not blank the page. For more information, read the guide to deletion." They have the sources listed there. But this I think really shows, just how Orwellian a time that we're living through right now. This has been the case with Wikipedia since probably the early 2010s. I would recommend Bruce Cannon Gibney's book, A Generation of Sociopaths, How the Boomers Betrayed America, for a deeper understanding of this, because that was what led him to write the book, as he was a Silicon Valley tycoon who observed this kind of monopolization of Silicon Valley and the closing down of the internet. I mean, I remember the internet from back in the 2000s, man. It was the Wild West. YouTube was incredible. And now the YouTube is just the TV. It's another part of the propaganda machine. And it's entirely, according to Bruce Cannon Gibney, it's entirely because the boomer generation of investors displaced the silent generation of investors through natural attrition. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so here is Jack Posobiec, Jack Pozo on Twitter, and he says, "Breaking: Zelensky committed a war crime against Poland. The Polish government has now officially confirmed that missile that killed 2 Polish farmers last year was fired by Ukraine. Zelensky lied, said it was Russia, and urged the U.S. to invoke Article 5 of NATO." Yep, that's where we are, folks. Here we go. Here's Jack Posobiec.
Polish experts from the government of Poland have now come out and confirmed that the missile that struck a grain facility in southern Poland last November was launched by Ukraine. Reuters has the report. The explosion of the missile in NATO member Poland fueled fears that the war in Ukraine could spiral into a wider conflict by triggering the alliance's mutual defense clause. But at the time, Warsaw and NATO said that they believed it was a stray. Sources with knowledge of the investigation said that Poland had established that the missile was, in fact, an S-300 air defense missile fired from Ukrainian territory. This rocket has a range of 75 to 90 kilometers. At that time, Russian positions were in a place from which no Russian missile of this type could reach where it struck. Ukraine, their perspective, has denied that it was their missile. In fact, go back to last November. Zelensky was demanding that the United States and NATO invoke Article 5 over this. Now, we knew right away that these Polish civilians, these farmers, were killed by a missile that likely came from Ukraine. Zelensky lied about it. The entire government of Ukraine lied about it. I have a question. Is Ukraine a NATO member? Because if a non-NATO member like Ukraine attacks a NATO member like Poland, then what do you do? Or is it like today, which is the 1-year anniversary of the day that the United States blew up Nord Stream 2? What happens when a NATO member, the United States, attacks another NATO member, Germany? Because remember, Nord Stream 2 was a German project. You see, this is the situation we find ourselves in. And you got these guys up there now. They're locked down on spending. There's some good senators, J.D. Vance, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, that are holding the line, that are calling out what exactly it is that the Ukrainian military is doing with our money. But the real question is, why would Zelensky, who has now committed essentially war crimes against Poland and the Polish people, not apologize? Has he apologized yet for praising a Waffen SS member up in Canada, which, oh, by the way, Poland is now looking at extraditing. They've announced they've opened an investigation into extraditing. The guy's 98 years old. I don't know if he's going to be flying anytime soon, but they're actually opening up an investigation on this SS officer in Poland. Because let me tell you something, Poland doesn't take that stuff lightly. And perhaps none of us should. But Zelensky, Biden, all of these people that have been taking our money, they're going to be held accountable for the things they've done, for the people they've killed, for the bodies they've left in their wake. And the American people are sick of it. And you know who else is sick of it? The people of Poland. They've got an election coming up in a couple of weeks, and I expect that they are going to make everyone hear their voices very soon.
There you go. So the Americans are tracking this stuff pretty closely. That is good to see. We are seeing some signs that the cracks are forming even in our own propaganda machine. We have Deborah was just posting the link to A Generation of Sociopaths there, guys, if you want to go check that out. It's disturbing. I don't give trigger warnings around here, but just so you guys know, human nature is quite dark. So here is the Toronto Sun. I wanted to throw a couple of comments over here on, Alberta Girl 67 is saying Poland is based. Yeah, they are pretty based, actually. They've shut down a lot of the mass immigration and stuff like that as well. And I saw some comments from some of their politicians, just pointing out, like, we don't have this problem, that problem, because we've actually managed our immigration. So they're not taking the bait on any of this stuff. I think it's all part of the Chinese Communist Party psyop to destroy the West without even firing a shot. We see it on the southern border of the U.S. We see it with our own open borders policy. The only thing that's really saving us right now, I think, is geography. If we were over there in Europe connected to the rest of Eurasia, then a lot of the bad guys could just walk here. But we are somewhat insulated in that regard. And I think that we do have, the problem doesn't impact us as much. We do seem to have some really great people coming in as well, because I think in order to afford to be able to come to Canada from Asia, like, you can't just walk. So we tend to take a lot of elites. But then that creates another problem for the developing world, because we steal all their engineers, we brain drain all their doctors, and so on and so forth. And then we bring them here so they can drive Uber in Ottawa because we don't recognize their qualifications. Okay. And someone is saying human nature is quite dark. How true? That's Deborah over there. Yeah, it really is, guys. We're a pretty violent and hedonistic species, and it takes effort to be good, whereas being evil is easy, I'm afraid. So that's the kind of the whole human story. And Nurse Vader over on Rebel is saying, I remember when that happened. Local radio and online local municipal news published, quote, Russia bombed Ukraine but hit Poland, close quote. Never corrected their publication. No, I don't expect that these publications will be correcting themselves anytime soon. But the pressure is mounting. So stay tuned for that. Okay, here's Toronto Sun. Warmington, Poland started extradition process against Canadian who served with Nazis. In reaction to a former Nazi soldier who served in a unit responsible for the death of thousands of Polish citizens during the Second World War being cheered in Canada's parliament, Poland has begun the process to extradite the 98-year-old. Quote, in view of the scandalous events in the Canadian parliament, which involved honoring in the presence of President Volodymyr Zelensky, a member of the criminal Nazi SS Galician formation, I have taken steps towards the possible extradition of this man to Poland, close quote, posted Przemysław Sarnek on X on Tuesday. Sarnek is Poland's education and science minister, who is also a lawyer. And now Poland's embassy in Ottawa has confirmed the posting. Quote, the Twitter X account that you have sent to us is a legitimate one. This is the account of the minister, Przemysław Sarnek, close quote, said Sebastian Szynski, first Secretary, Political and Economic Division, Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Ottawa. Holy smokes, these Polish names are a mouthful. The Polish ambassador to Canada, Witold Dzilski, previously told CTV, quote, this is a person who participated in an organization that was targeting Poles, was committing mass murder of Poles, not only the military personnel, but also civilians, close quote. And, quote, for me, such people should not be present in public life and probably should be prosecuted, close quote. This is a stunning turn of events in what has been 4 days of fallout from Friday's appearance in the House of Commons by Jarosław Hunka, who received a standing ovation from all 338 elected members of parliament for what Speaker Anthony Rota called his heroic efforts in fighting Russia on behalf of Ukraine in the Second World War. Quote, we have here in chamber today a Ukrainian-Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98, close quote, said Rota, who resigned Tuesday amid calls for him to step down. Now, I don't think I actually showed the clip on the program here of Anthony Rota reading this statement in the House of Commons. But if you go and you watch it, you can kind of see like he's doing the math as he's reading it. He doesn't appear to have read this statement prior to this particular moment when he was introducing this war criminal to the House of Commons. He says like a Ukrainian-Canadian world veteran from the Second World War. So that's about as clumsily as you can state a Ukrainian-Canadian Second World War veteran. That seems to be what he means to say, but he's stumbling over it here. And when he's reading it in the House of Commons, he says, who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians, and he kind of stops for a minute and his eyebrows go up a little bit. I wish I had that queued up now, but yeah, his eyebrows go up a little bit. I think this is him here reading it. Is it? Let's see. Oh no, that's a 12-minute video. Okay, so, but yeah, he appears to be doing the math in his head, the math that everybody else did as soon as he read that statement. If he's Ukrainian and he fought the Russians during the Second World War, chances are he was a Nazi because that's who fought the Russians during the Second World War. Okay, here's Kasia Sheridan from the National Compost, and she says, Trudeau's handling of Rota affair has very real implications for Ukraine. Just when you think things can't get worse for Canada on the world stage, they do. A week ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau torched our country's relationship with India, bringing a smile to the face of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Great point. Thank you, National Compost, for highlighting that as well. This week, he's got Russian President Vladimir Putin doing the happy dance after House Speaker Anthony Rota feted a Nazi during Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Ottawa last Friday. Putin's propaganda about, quote, denazifying Ukraine, close quote, thus got a major boost, complete with a slow-mo video footage of our MPs rising to their feet to applaud a beaming Jarosław Hunka, who served the SS 14th Waffen Division, which committed numerous atrocities against Poles during the Second World War. Now, the only line that I guess I take issues here is Putin's propaganda about denazifying Ukraine. Like, could we do a serious investigation as to the validity of that claim, whether Putin may in fact be telling the truth, or at least there is a granule of truth to this? I suspect that there is. It would be nice to see somebody in the mainstream actually take these claims seriously, but instead in Canada, we banned Russian television. Like we still have our propaganda outlets. I want to see what the other side is saying. I want to see what their propaganda is saying. And there's always a kernel of truth in the propaganda. So I think that's definitely worthy greater scrutiny, especially at this particular point in time. Okay, back to the article. Meanwhile, our Five Eyes allies are scratching their heads in frustration, wondering how a middle power can make such a spectacular mess. At a time when tensions are running higher than they have since the Cold War, when Europe is once again engulfed in conflict, and when Russia and China are seeking to impose an autocratic world order, along comes Canada and lends them a helping hand. Yeah, it is too convenient, guys. Quote, the speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized, close quote, said Trudeau after Ret'd's gaffe was revealed. Quote, but this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and by extension to all Canadians, close quote. It's not just embarrassing. This is a threat, I think, to national security, to global stability. This is a time when we should be uniting with allies like India, and Poland. And what do we see? We see greater and greater polarization. And I'm glad that they point out that Xi Jinping is tickled pink over the whole affair. Mistakes do happen, but it's what happens next that matters most. And that's where this government has failed again and let its allies down the process. Let's unpack Trudeau's first sentence. If things are that embarrassing, then why didn't Ret'd offer his resignation immediately? Why didn't Trudeau demand it? It doesn't matter that Ret'd is a nice guy, a popular speaker, and a good liberal. His error caused an international incident during a time of war. He jeopardized the success of our allies in that war. That was reason enough for him to step down without delay. Taking a tough stand would have made sense for Trudeau, not only to save face, but to show support for Zelensky, who was in Canada for the first time since the war began. Instead, Trudeau deputized Government House Leader Karina Gould, a descendant of Holocaust survivors, no less, to toss Ret'd under the bus. On Twitter, she wrote, quote, the speaker has now made it clear that he was responsible for inviting this individual to the House. The government played no role. I did not know he would be there. The PM did not meet him. I am deeply troubled this happened. I urge MPs to avoid politicizing this incident, close quote. Oh, my God. Yeah, they politicize everything. I mean, they called us all Nazis at the trucker protest, and here they are hosting literal Nazis in the parliament and telling the rest of us not to politicize it. Don't talk about it. Yeah, just sweep it under the rug, erase the record. What planet are the liberals on? This isn't about politicizing an incident. This is about doing the right thing and fixing a mistake. Saying the government had no role and knew nothing is even more embarrassing. And it also reveals a complete lack of understanding of foreign affairs and events that are directly impacted by this screw-up. Polls are set to vote in a national election on October 15th, where one of the big issues in Ukraine grain exports, which Polish farmers claim are depressing prices. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki is fighting a right-wing opposition that accuses him of being subservient to Ukraine. To shore up his nationalist credentials, Morawiecki is recently instituted a ban on Ukrainian grain, defying the European Union and leading to a war of words with Zelensky. Ukraine cannot afford to lose Poland as an ally. If the opposition makes major gains in the election, it could easily happen. The image of Zelensky applauding a Nazi is thus just about the worst message to send to Polish voters. Now the Polish education minister is calling for Hunka to be extradited. It would be a wise move for Canada to act quickly and to acquiesce this request, but doing so would mean that Trudeau would be sending Hunka to face justice in Poland a week after standing to honor him as a quote-unquote hero. You couldn't script a worse farce. Ret'd has finally resigned, but he's not the only one who should step down. No, he is not. He is the scapegoat. I don't believe for 1 second that this guy invited his constituent to the House of Commons unvetted. And the speaker doesn't vet guests. There's a whole security apparatus in place for exactly this purpose. They knew who this guy was. And anybody who can use the internet knows who this guy was. We knew within minutes. And here's Denise saying, PP never demanded JT resignation. In my opinion, politicians knew. Yes, they did know. And you can see there is some reluctance on the part of Pierre Poilievre to even applaud. At least that was what Mark Garrettson was pointing out on Twitter. Not that there's anything Stalinist going on in Canada when we're calling each other for not applauding enthusiastically enough. But yeah, this is a real mess. And it's just it's not. It's incredulous, I think, to claim that nobody understood that in the Second World War the Russians fought against the Nazis. So that's all it took was the speaker kind of doing a little math in his head there, even as he was reading the statement that somebody else clearly wrote for him. So it's like I'm always saying, it's the people behind the scenes that matter right now. It's the institutional power that matters. It's the old guard of the establishment political parties, due to a consequence of natural demography at this particular moment. That is the boomer generation, and that's PMO, PCO, the leadership, like RCMP, the military, all that. It's the people at the very top that are the problem right now. Like, it's not the rank and file. I don't believe that it is. Chris Workington is tweeting out, President Zelensky addressed our parliament while at war with Russia. There are very real security protocols for any visiting head of state, much less one that is at war with Russia. I don't believe for a second that the government didn't vet guests in attendance last week. Not for a second. And if by some absurd chance that vetting didn't actually happen, then we've just sent a signal to the whole world that our liberal government isn't serious about anything. Shame on Trudeau. Yes, indeed. Okay, so here
there was massive security protocols. Individuals were required to be on extensive lists. That, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that you individually vetted each of those names. The lists were given to the government. One would assume that there would have been some process of vetting. If the government is now saying, Mr. Speaker, that none of that happened, Mr. Speaker, I know your desire to take this on, but I don't believe for a second that you went, verified each person who was invited to this place, verified that they were not a security risk, and then stood at the door and let them in. I know that wasn't the truth. So this attempt by the government to state that this was your doing and your doing alone, that you alone are responsible and that they bear no responsibility, is to send a signal to all Canadians and all of our allies that we're not serious about anything. Well, I'm not going to take collective responsibility for what in fact is the government's responsibility. And Mr. Speaker, I'd recommend you not do it either.
I think that's some excellent commentary on the House of the Commons there. He shouldn't fall on his butter knife, as Clyde Do Something said yesterday. The speaker shouldn't fall on his butter knife for this one. Like, it's just been one scapegoat after another, after another, after another. Jody Wilson-Raybould, like every time Trudeau finds himself in hot water, he just grabs the lowest man on the totem pole and throws him under the bus. And so many people have been thrown under the bus at this point that the lowest man on the totem pole is the Speaker of the House this time. So they can't keep this up forever. Like, the whole thing is falling apart. Like I say, I really think they're just white knuckling at this point, doing everything they can to cleave to power. And hopefully we can get this whole affair over the Communist Party's interference in our elections sorted out before we go to the polls again. And Deborah is saying, I'm not sure if everyone would know, since the Justin Trudeau government hide a lot of things from the other parties. Yeah, I'm not convinced that everybody there knew. I just think that they probably should have known, even by the speaker's comments. And it is Stalinist the way everybody got up and just mindlessly applauded, gave this guy the standing ovation. Nobody really raised an eyebrow. I like to think that if I were in that chamber, that I would be the guy on the Nazi meme where everybody's giving the Sieg Heil and he's standing there with his arms folded. I actually had that meme posted to my overhead bin in my cubicle when I was still in the military. Like, be this guy. Don't willingly, blindly go along with the crowd. You need to stop and think about what you're doing. Okay, here's Destiny, and she says, quote, I must say, okay, I'll just play the clip here. Biden has turned America into a third world nation. Yeah, it is the Biden administration. I do think that Obama is still kind of pulling the strings from behind the scenes. So here is a clip from Fox News. Here we go.
We're not going to pay for them. We're not going to fit them in the beautiful rooms.
This is Polish MEP Dominik Tarczynski Not even one will come to Poland ever. So I'm just, I was just talking about how based Poland is, and here they are talking about the immigration issue. Again, the open borders immigration, the total casting aside of all our security protocols makes us less secure as a country. And I think it is part and parcel with the art of war currently being inflicted on the West. Sun Tzu wrote in the 5th century BC that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. And here the Poles are going based and not having any of it.
Hotels or anywhere else. They will not stay on Polish soil. They will not stay in Poland. Poland, as I said in the parliament, and I'm trying to repeat it, Poland is the only country in the European Union without any terror attack. We haven't had any terror attacks in Poland because there is no illegal migration. That's why every single time I'm trying to say, be like Poland. Be brave, believe in your own nations. But most of these spineless politicians in here in Brussels are destroying their own countries. I must say, Mr. Trump was right about the wall. He built a beautiful wall. Can you imagine America now without a wall? Poland built a wall. We have a great wall, and no one is able to enter. No one is able to come to Poland. And as we promised, our government promised in 2015, not even one will come to Poland ever. We're not going to pay for them.
There you go. And Anita was just asking what is based, and Cynthia is replying, based equals solid, real. Yeah, it's like antithetical to being woke. Woke is like in the tank, brainwashed for the narrative, the propaganda, and based is the opposite of that. The radical candor. And that's what I advocate for. That's about as based as it gets. Okay. Wow. That was actually pretty quick. I usually go for about 2 hours, but we're at an hour and a half. But I do have an appointment I got to get to, guys. Yeah, this brings us to the Veterans for Freedom website. Go check us out at veteransforfreedom.ca. The time just flies by when I'm doing this thing. Holy smokes. Check us out here. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Subscribe by clicking subscribe. You can join Veterans for Freedom if you're a veteran by clicking join here. And you can support Veterans for Freedom by clicking the support button. Here we have 2 options available. V4F donation, that's to help with our operational costs like the website and my StreamYard account. And then we have the support fund. You can join the V4F support fund to help Canadians who are facing difficulties in modern day Canada. And as you can see, what you do is you sign up for the support fund donation, and then you get to vote on where the pool of donations goes at the end of the month. We have 4 days left to vote right now. Saba Vizi is one of our candidates. He's a Romanian-born trucker driver who has lived in Canada for the past 20 years. Saba stayed in Ottawa until the end of the trucker convoy, where he was arrested and beaten by police. And then we have Kimberly Newdorf, and she's a Canadian wife, mother, and homeschooler of 3 who was recently convicted and fined $7,000 plus costs for organizing 2 peaceful demonstrations against provincial government-imposed restrictions on constitutionally enshrined rights and freedoms in 2020. And here we have the Coots 4. Geez, these guys have been interned for forever, it seems. Just insane what we're living through here in Canada. It says... Chris, Jerry, Tony, and Chris, 2 of the men are single fathers. One is a husband, father. One is an only child to a 79-year-old mother, and they deserve the right to defend themselves. Unfortunately, this will come at great financial cost to them personally. I am reaching out to the community and asking for help. We all, as Canadians, have the right to be innocent until proven guilty. We, as Canadians, have the right to a fair bail hearing, as we as Canadians have the right to defend ourselves. Okay, so, and they haven't even had a bail hearing yet. They haven't. It's just atrocious what's being done to these guys. So, and also you will have the option to send 10% of your donation this month to Valor Legal Action Center. And that's Catherine Christensen's initiative. She's a friend of the program, regular contributor, and really the tip of the spear, I think, in the legal fight against these mandates. And, there is a class action underway for basically anybody who wants to join it in the CAF at this point. And they are leading the way when it comes to restoring fundamental freedoms and human rights in Canada. And Darlene is saying it's almost 600 days for the Coots 4. Yeah, it is almost 600 days. Some people are probably know the exact number of days right off the top of their head. I'm tracking it, but probably not that closely, not close enough at least to state the exact number of days, but it's just atrocious what's being done here. So here's Aldous Huxley again, and he says, there will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak. Producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. And one thing I do want to point out about this statement is, as I have said before, Aldous Huxley, like, he focused on the tyranny of the pleasure, whereas Orwell focused on the tyranny of the tyranny of the pain. And it's some combination, of those two that we see in our current fourth turning. And the mistake that both of these guys made was they failed to account for the cyclical nature of history. So he says in a generation or so, it's actually been about four and a bit generations since he wrote that, because things turned around, right? Like at the end of the fourth turning, we went back to a first turning, and we got the high that followed the Second World War, where the GI generation built our modern civilization, gave us all our technology, big economic boom and population boom, as I'm always pointing out. So there is plenty of reason to believe that this is not going to continue on a linear trajectory all the way to totalitarianism, because of demographics. So the generation running our institutions that's doing this to us now, they're not going to be running our institutions forever. And the people that have had to live through this tyranny will someday be assuming that power. So yeah, I mean, there is the potential for us to fall to tyranny, like it has happened in the Salem witch trials and during the Dark Ages repeatedly in Europe. And the Weinsteins have been on their podcast saying that we're on the precipice of another dark age, but we're also on the precipice of another high of higher standards of living, a big economic boon and new technologies, the whole shebang. So plenty of reason to be optimistic there, guys. And I will throw to a few comments before I sign off here. Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers, is saying, thanks, Jeff, as always, much love, another great show. Thanks very much. I appreciate you, Cindy, always being here. And Michael is saying, great info and updates as always. Thanks, Jeff. It's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you for the support. Awesome show, Jeff. Have a great day, says Metzeslav. Yes, have a great day yourself, brother. I appreciate you. Deborah says, thank you, Jeff, for this live. I missed the first hour, so I'll have to rewatch and catch up. God bless you and yours. Well, before you do that, make sure you give me some push-ups. If you missed an hour, I think that's a good 10. I'll go a little easy on you there. 10 is good. And Antoinette says, more cowards have probably been paid off to look the other way. That is part of the blue, gold, yellow strategy of global dominance that the Chinese Communist Party is pursuing. The gold is financial, so a lot of bribery and, of course, economic warfare that they engage in. And Judy says, yes, thank you for it all. Mother of the drummers is saying, thanks, Jeff. I'm going back and listening to the beginning of the stream. I came in late. Stay frosty. Well, you owe me some push-ups, Mother of the drummers. So give me 10. All right. And Marion says, great show, Jeff. Thank you so much for this initiative. Informative. Thank you so much. Informative. Yes, I appreciate you guys. I'm glad this is resonating with everybody, and you find it to be helpful and useful, and I'm just going to keep doing it. And Nurse Vader over on Rumble says, bonne journée. We got a Franco in the house. No, I'm kidding. Je peux le parler un peu. And I did do like some French training and stuff while I was in the military. I never got the year-long course. That seems to be for the insiders, and I don't golf, so they wouldn't give me the year-long course. But Mother of the Drum is saying, I am hauling wood. Is that okay? Okay, 5 push-ups then. If you're hauling wood, we'll make it 5 push-ups. I think that's fair. Okay, guys, that's it for me today. Thanks very much for everybody for being on board. Until next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there.